Hi, friends. Welcome. Happy whatever day it is. I just stopped saying the day of the week because who knows when you're watching this. I'm Ethan. I'm the college essay guy. I use he, him pronouns. I am really glad you're here. I'm excited to share with you some cool resources that I hope are useful in your life and to tell you a little bit about this cool program, which is called CEG Live, that I'll PSA in just a moment. And it's basically like essentially our pay what you can boot camps. So more on that in just a moment. Our check-in question today, you'll notice I'm wearing a onesie because it's keeping me cozy. The question is, what keeps you cozy? Feel free to let us know in the chat. We've got comfortable sweats, which I just read as comfortable sweets, which is not what you wrote. Crackling fireplace, white fairy lights. I love it, Kristen. Lots of fragrant lit candles, Cowboys blanket, and Netflix. I love it. So welcome. Today, here's what we're talking about. So this is session 2 of 3. So session 1, which was a week or two ago with Tom and Hannah, was all about, essentially big picture stuff. What is the college admissions process all about? What are the fundamentals? And Tom and Hannah gave some really specific stuff about the purpose of the personal statement and how college essays are reviewed from the admissions perspective. It's content and context that I've often skipped over in years past. And we were like, hey, we should offer this as well. So if you didn't get a chance to watch that, I would bet $1 that that content is going to be better than you thought it was going to be. And I say that because I know I've seen the content, but it's got a bent towards the practical. And I think it's good context. So if you didn't get a chance to watch that, je recommend. Going back, I don't know how to say recommend in French. And the other thing that they got into is what happens after the applications are submitted. So today's our second session, 2 of 3, and I'm going to talk big picture about, well, not big picture, I'm going to get into some practicals about how do you help students brainstorm great topics. And then I'm going to get into how do you help students actually pick a topic, and I'm going to give you some practical resources. And before we get into it, some PSAs. One is that CEG Live is back. This is our program we launched in the pandemic. During the pandemic, we had a lot of folks sign up, and we were like, oh, this seems like a thing that folks want. So what is it? It's basically a series of boot camps that happen. They're focus on the personal statement and on the college application. And basically I walk students through the process of creating all their stuff for their application, creating first drafts. We're not trying in 1 week to create final drafts of everything. And I think it's really important to set that expectation that students will not be done, but my hope is to save you some time as a counselor. And so the students have their first drafts. So they're like, oh, cool, we've got something to work with. We've got 4 different camps this year. We'll share a link in the chat in just a second. I've updated some of the Choose Your Own Adventure tool, which some of you know about. Some of you will be seeing today for the first time. And what else? It's virtual, it's free for students, and it's pay what you can for schools and organizations. So my hope is that if you aren't signed up, and we'll do a little poll in a second to see how many of you are signed up, that you'll see this and you'll be like, oh, cool, we should totally join, because it can be a really cool way to partner. There's still work to be done, obviously, and that's sort of like each counselor is going to do their own work in terms of how do you meet with students, and we're going to talk a little bit about next time about how do you help students revise their essays. The other quick PSA that's happening is we've got a great course coming up with Stephen Antonoff, who is my mentor, and now I think I can call him a friend, on how to build a great college list. So we'll put a link to that in the chat as well. That's basically happening in a month. We've got 100 and some counselors signed up, so hope you can join for that. And then we're also hiring. If you're like, oh, CEG is cool, I want to spend more time with Ethan and the CEG folks, let us know. We've got some part-time roles and some full-time roles, and we are kind of cool. All right, so here's what I'm covering today. So I'm going to go briefly over the purpose of the personal statement. In my humble opinion, we covered that a little bit last time, so I'll go fast there. I'm going to talk about why I tell students to basically ignore the prompts. I'm going to talk about 2 structures. If you've been on a session before, you've heard me talk about montage and narrative, but not everybody's heard of those things. So I'm going to give you like a 1-minute overview of those. I'm going to mostly spend time going through some cool brainstorming exercises that you can use with your students. If you're familiar with CEG stuff, but you haven't been around in a while or haven't been to a webinar in a while, I think you might learn some new things. And I want to share some updates on what I've been learning in the past year. I would say 2 years since we've been using these new resources. And then I'm going to give a list of some common topics and some ways to redirect students based on topics. And talk about a little bit about how do you help redirect a student if they've written something that's not amazing, or they're working with a topic that you're not super stoked on. Okay, so let's jump in. I'm going to share my screen. That's become a thing that I say so much more than I thought I would say in my life before, thanks to the pandemic. All right, so this is the Choose Your Own Adventure tool. And if you're like, what the heck is this thing? Stand by. I'm gonna walk you through it slowly, but this is what the tool that I use in the boot camps and that students get access to, and that you would get access to. Okay. The organizing principle here is that essentially when students are writing their personal statement, they're essentially trying to figure out, first of all, where the heck am I? What am I doing? I believe a personal statement is not trying to impress the reader. It's not recapping accomplishments. Essentially, it's this phrase that I repeat again and again. It's to demonstrate the skills, qualities, values, and interests that you're going to bring with you to a college campus. And so that's the context for the resources I'm going to be sharing today. That's the goal of these brainstorming exercises. When it comes to a great personal statement, I believe these 4 qualities are common to many of the great ones that I read. And so the brainstorming exercises will be an attempt to elicit some of these things. So for example, core values, what would you fight for? What do you really care about? Insight, so what moments? Ability to think critically. Vulnerability, AKA, is it actually personal? And craft, which is to say, did the student clearly spend some time revising and working through their personal statement? And, it's like they didn't just throw it together. So how do you actually do this? There's an essay workbook, which I'm not going to get into right now, but I just want you to see that this is a workbook that students will have as an opportunity to basically record all their work. And I recommend that they share it with you at the end of the boot camp. But essentially, when students are approaching this whole personal statement process, I ask this simple question. Have you faced challenges in your life or not so much? Many students don't know. And I'm like, okay, let's start with montage. Some students are like, yes. And even if they have faced challenges, I'm like, let's start with montage. So let's say we click montage. What is a montage? Some of you have heard this from me before, so stand by, bear with me. But a montage essay is a series of moments or events that are connected by a common theme. And a simple way that I think about this is like it's a bracelet with a thread that has all these beads on it. So in a moment, I'm going to share with you some different brainstorming exercises that involve helping students to generate the thread, which is to say a common theme that they could use for their personal statement. By common, I mean not like common like lots of people use it, but a theme that unites the different parts of them, and also generates cool beads. And the beads in this personal statement metaphor are like the different cool sides of myself that I want to show the reader. So for example, let's say I was writing an essay about one of my favorite topics, which is, if you look behind me, board games. So I might say, okay, I want to write about board games. And board games would be the string. It's the thing that I want to like connect the different sides of me. But if I were to brainstorm, okay, well, what are the different sides of me that I want to show? I'll stop sharing my face for a second, my screen for a second. I might be like, oh, I want to show the reader my sense of like humor, and I want to show the reader my creativity. And I had this really cool extracurricular project that I did with Boy Scouts. So I want to show that I'm like have leadership skills. So I might go then, therefore, and go, okay, what are different games that I could talk about that might show my sense of humor or my creativity or my leadership? Could I connect games to each one of those qualities? So that's a quick example of a montage. Now, that's not the only way to write a personal statement. In the narrative path here, sometimes students are writing about challenges, in some cases, big challenges. And so the structure there is a little bit different. For narrative structure, oftentimes students are writing about challenges they've faced and their effects. Sometimes students skip over the effects, and I think it's really important to get those in. Part 2 of the essay is what they did about it, and part 3 is what they learned from the experience. Oftentimes, as you've probably seen on a first draft, the whole essay is all about the challenges and less about these parts. So part of the challenge is to get them, especially in the brainstorming part, to get them to be thinking about some of these things. Okay, in a little bit, I'm gonna focus today on montage. In a little bit, I'll talk about narrative, and I'll talk about how do you help a student decide when they're trying to pick between different topics. Okay. So I want to do like a sort of a 7-minute walkthrough of brainstorming. And the first thing that I like to start with, and I'm not going to do it with y'all today because many of you on this call probably have done the values exercise or maybe even use it with students, But I think it's really important to start with values. And I'll just show you what this looks like. If you've never seen this before, I have this values list that has a whole bunch of different values. And the reason I like to start here is that I think that in terms of values, I'm going to close some tabs. In terms of values, I think that this can be a compass for helping students understand the different sides of themselves that they want to show in the application. So when it comes to brainstorming the content, I really love to encourage students, hey, let's start with values. And it only takes 5 minutes. And I think that can be a cool centering, grounding thing that can be like, okay, here are some cool things that I know at some point I want to put into the application. But then the question is, well, how do I manifest these values in a personal statement? So this is the part that will be new to some of you. I used to only use like the essence objects and the values exercise. And if you look at my book from 2016, you'll find mostly that exercise. But I found that there were actually some other, maybe better ways of helping students generate content. And I found this by not just like meditating and like, suddenly going, hey, what are some good ideas for generating topics? But I actually went back through 300, what I would call successful essays, which is to say successful in the sense that I felt like the student did a great job of showing different sides of themselves. And I started to look for patterns. And I created this big old spreadsheet. And it has all these different essays that essentially kind of fall into some different categories. Now, quick side note, if you really knew me, you would know I don't like to codify things too much. Like, I really resist when folks are like, this is a CEG essay. Like, I kind of cringe inwardly because I do not think there is such a thing. I would rather folks say like, this is a CEG exercise or a college essay guide, CEG equals college essay guide process, because I don't want there to be like, this is the way an essay should be. So I just want to meme that with you, my community. Like, there's hopefully no such thing as like a college essay guy essay. Sometimes there will be like essays that look like an essay that's an example essay, but I'm getting ready to share with you these 7 different exercises, but I don't think there are only 7 types of essays or something like that. Okay. So I made this big spreadsheet and there were all these different types of essays, but within each of these, we'll call them categories or paths for writing an essay, there's so much room. So I want to offer you 7 different short questions or exercises that you can ask students. And this is like pen and paper time if you are somebody who remembers things better by writing things down. And if you don't like to do that, you just want to listen, great. I will share a resource afterwards that has all these written down for you. But here's 7 different questions that you can ask students to help them come up with cool ideas. Or for you, if you're writing a personal statement or a cover letter or something. Okay. Exercise 1. What do you love? Spend a minute. You don't literally have to spend a minute right now, but spend a minute making a list of all the things that you love. I love onesies. I love games. I love Gatorade. I love my dog. I love my mom. You can just make a list. It's a great icebreaker, a great way to get students' ideas going. 1, I love. 2, related. I know. What are some things you know a lot about? I know a lot about college essays. I know a lot about college admissions. I know a lot about how the voice makes sound. I know a lot about silly accents. I know a lot about the International Phonetic Alphabet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's fun to have students just brainstorm these. And you can either have them just do this writing, or they can do this with a partner and have the partner write down and then hand them back the exercise. So the I love or I know exercise, one of my favorites, and it's really productive. Like, you can get a whole bunch of ideas in like 3 minutes, like a minute and a half each. Okay. Exercise 2, the essence objects exercise. Some of you know this one because you've been on the website or you've watched the YouTube video, but essentially the setup is make a list of objects, each of which represents moments, memories, people, meaningful people in your life. An essence object might be, for me, here's one that I've never talked about before. Whoa, let's see if I can grab it. It's this little massage ball for the feet. And you might be like, gross, Ethan, you're holding that? Yeah. I am committed to my own self-care, and I'm trying to be even better about it. And part of my commitment to my own self-care this year is having a little massage ball here that I literally use, yes, on my feet, but also as a reminder to like, slow down, do less better, etc. So this essence object, this whatever you would call it, a massage ball, represents the value of self-care. So I give an example or two. I recommend giving students your personal examples because then you can let them get to know you a little bit better, model vulnerability, and then let them make a list. Exercise 2. I know that I know is kind of like the same exercise, so I'm calling that 1. Exercise 2, essence objects. Exercise 3, what are your superpowers? What are you really good at? Make a list. I'm really good at hopefully creating a space for psychological safety. That's a really specific one. I'm really good at shooting free throws. I'm really good at, you make a list. It could be that when students are like trying to come up with ideas, that you just share the values list, and then they start to get ideas because you show them that list and they're like, well, I'm not really good at anything. And then you're like, well, take a look at this list. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I'm good at like being brave in certain situations, or I'm good at being productive. This values list often like sparks ideas for students. So exercise 3, skills and superpowers. Inside the tool, there's a list of a whole other questions you can use for students, especially who don't nothing pings for them, because some students really aren't good at or ready to own stuff that they're good at. They're like, I'm not good at anything. So there's a list of a whole other set of questions. Exercise 4, what do you want to be or do in the future? So some students will have a really clear idea. They're like, lawyer, boom. Some students will be like, I don't know. And I'll be like, well, just pick something. What would be fun to do if you had to like pick a career tomorrow? And then I tell them, okay, if you've got a thing, great. If you don't have a thing, you can list more superpowers. But if you do have a thing, I want you to list 3 qualities that you think someone would need to possess in order to be great in that career. So for example, they go, okay, a lawyer. Well, then I have to be good at and interested in inclusion. Ah, wow, interesting. Yeah, I am. That's something that I am good at, and including others. Lawyers are about finding the truth. Arguable. Hashtag arguable. In the truth in a certain way, right? Lawyers have to be good at rationality, thinking through things. And what this can help students to do is sort of like, it's kind of like an end around, like an indirect way of getting them to own things that they're good at. Because they might be not be like, I'm good at rationality, but they might be like, you know what? Lawyers have to be really smart. And then I'm like, are you really smart? And they might not have initially been like, yes, but they might be like, well, yeah, I mean, in some sense. And then like, okay, how are you smart? So that career one is kind of getting them to own their superpowers, essentially. I've never said it quite that way, but I think that's really true for that one. That's 4. Exercise 5. This is my favorite one. And it's, for me, over the last 2 years, it's been the most productive in terms of helping students come up with ideas. How many ways do you identify? What are some of your identities? And there are so many ways to determine identity. There are things that you'd like to do. There are places that you've been. There are, ways that you look. And so there's a whole, I'm not going to get into them all right now. There's a whole little cloud that you can show students to get them to think about their different social identities. In fact, I have a handwritten version of this that we're putting together, and I'm going to be presenting at the Super ACAT conference with Hannah on Monday. So identities, what are the different ways that you identify? I'll show examples of these in just a minute. Number 6, home. Where do you find home? What does home look like to you? And there could be like a specific location. Like, I am at home when I am in this room doing a webinar with my friends, and I am at home when I'm also thinking about new resources. This is very like obvious and sort of, I don't know, boring. I am at home when I'm revealing myself, as I just did. I am at home when I am in Asheville, North Carolina. So I'm kind of going back and forth between geographical places and like things that I love to do. Another way to ask this is, when am I in flow? Some of you know this term, flow. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, there's a great TED Talk. I'm not going to spell his last name, but it's like, what are those activities where I lose time? Is it when you're cooking, when you're programming, when you're creating the master schedule? I'm kidding. So what are those different flow states for you? How do you invoke them? Number 7, uncommon extracurricular activities. By uncommon extracurricular activities, I mean, what are those things that you do that not everybody does? So there will be common sports and common instruments, like, football and piano. But are there any things that you do that are like a little bit weird? And I'm not literally asking you to self-reveal, counselors, because sometimes when you ask counselors what are their extracurricular activities, they start to go, I don't know if I can actually tell you what those are. So you don't have to put those in the chat. But extracurricular activities can include anything essentially that you do outside school that means, that represents you pursuing something that you're interested in. Students know what extracurricular activities are. We don't need to explain that. I will say something a little bit about what happens when students pick obvious extracurricular activities and how do we guide them away from that. Okay, pausing, because I just threw a lot at you. For questions, for comments, 7 exercises I just ran through. I'll name them again. I know. Actually, you know what? Let me just paste them into the chat because that'll be faster. And pausing for questions on those exercises. These are some of my favorites for getting lots of ideas and getting them relatively quickly. I'm going to throw this into the chat real quick. There we go. Okay. Would I use all 7 of these over a few different sessions? Honestly, I want to do them all, Deirdre, in like 25 minutes. I want to just have a student sit there and I'm going to ask a bunch of questions and I'm going to let you just like write. And at the end of that, they're going to have in their workbook, they're going to have a whole bunch of ideas. Let me just show you what I mean by the workbook. So like in the Google Doc version of this, they're going to have essentially, there's a place where all these questions get asked. I know. Essence objects, random, these are the random questions that I mentioned. This is the career, and this is basically everything I just walked through is on this Google Doc. I'm like, great, Ethan, why didn't you this could have been a meeting. This could have been an email. It could have been, but then you wouldn't have been like, oh, this is pretty cool. You would have been like, great, another email from Ethan. So, so that's, and I want to have them actually like go and like have all that stuff so that we can then look at it and talk about it. Can you do this in a group setting? You absolutely can. That's what we do in the boot camp. Can students sign up for CEG Live individually? They can't sign up for CEG Live individually. It has to, oh, yes. Like, can they opt in? Yes, totally. Like, you don't need to be like, oh, you can, if you want, sign up everybody at once. Like, here's a spreadsheet and all the students, or you can just be like, here's the link to sign up. Yes, totally. What else? Can they revisit these for things like supplemental essays? I think they can. Right? I mean, of course, like to me, this is the stuff that gets them thinking about the personal statement, but of course, they're going to come back to this for supplemental essays. And yes, I do one big brainstorming session one day, totally. Okay. So those are some of my favorites for the montage. Again, montage is like finding a common theme and brainstorming a whole bunch of different ideas. Now, let me just show you really quick how this turns into an actual essay. So let's say, for instance, I have a blank sheet of paper I'll do this with students. I'll be like, all right, you've got all these things that you've written down. How does this turn into an essay? Simple exercise, you create a jellyfish. And what do I mean by a jellyfish? So you pick something that you've written down. So let's say, for example, something that I know or love. Like maybe I know a lot about, I'm trying to pick something that I haven't picked in a while. Snacks, let's go with snacks. That's something that I know a lot about. My friends, I've joked that I should start a podcast called Talk and Snack with the Snack King. Yes, I got a like from Judith. Okay, snacks. This is something that I know a lot about. I have no idea, y'all, if this is going to turn into a good essay topic or not, but I'm going to try in front of you now. So here goes. I'm going to get my trusty values exercise, and I'm going to see how many values that I can connect snacks to in 1 minute. And I'm going to actually do it in less than a minute. I can connect snacks to family because I definitely have eaten lots of snacks with my family. I can connect snacks to adventure. I got a cool adventure snacks story. I can connect snacks to like, ooh, there's something like taking care of others. So it's like, I'm going to call it caretaking. I can connect snacks to, I feel like I want to name that tune. And it's like, I can name snacks in 3 notes. I can connect snacks to listening, no. Wisdom, no. Nature, no. Maybe resourcefulness. there's like, yeah, it's like connection. I think that might be connected to caretaking, but I'm going to put it here for now. And I also kind of don't want it to be like perfect, because I don't want you to be like, well, Ethan, that was easy for you. I want you to know that this is like not always is like perfectly easy. But here's my quick 45-second brainstorm for my snacks college essay. So I'm writing about snacks and I'm thinking about my family, because I really want you to know more about my family. So I might think of a snack, for example, that I ate with my family, and that might lead me to a particular moment or a particular experience that like, feels important to who I am. And I'm not going to, for the sake of, I think you kind of see where this goes. I can also connect snacks to like an adventure, meaning like a road trip, for example, that I took with my friend Brian once. And that might lead you to knowing like road trips are really important to me, and adventure and travel, oh, you can hear the other values, are important to me. So essentially, what caretaking, I can't cook, or I choose not to cook, but snacks are a way that I take care of others. Caretaking manifests in my life in other ways too. Surprise, surprise, from one counselor to another. So caretaking would be another. So each of these ends up becoming a paragraph in my snacks essay. You see what we're doing there? So we start with the values. We try and come up with a specific example of that value, or the thing itself, whatever the thing is. So snacks, family, can I think of a snack I've eaten with my family? And then what is it that I want to reveal about myself in each of these paragraphs? So now I've got a 4-paragraph essay. If I slap an intro and an ending on it, that's 6 paragraphs. That's enough for a personal statement. So this one doesn't really look like a jellyfish because I did straight lines, but if you do wiggly lines, this will kind of look like a jellyfish. And you can do this with 5 different topics if you want, or tell students to do it. I have them do one live, and then I go, okay, well, did you come up with a cool idea? No, let's try another one. Even if you did come up with a cool idea, and I'll have them do 2 or 3 jellyfishes. I don't know if it's jellyfish or jellyfishes. You can let me know in the chat. But then once we've done this, like, they start to see how these personal statements are built. Because my commitment here is not necessarily like, you got to nail your topic, but to show them how we start to like connect values or different sides of yourself underneath a common theme. Because in order for this to make sense to a reader, I think the reader needs to be like, wait, because if I just told you about my family and like my caretaking and my, commitment to connection, you might be like, cool, but what's the thing connecting all the things? And it's whatever the thing is that I brainstormed, the thing that I love or know a lot about. You can switch this out with an essence object. It could be one object represents my, represents all these things. More often than not, I find that it's like several objects. So it's like, here are the objects in my room is like written here, and then each object in the room connects to a different value. Yeah. Identities, this works as well. You could do one identity. So my identity as a snacker, I'm going to actually call it, my friends call me the snack king. So I could do an essay on how I developed and how I manifest this identity of snack king. And I could still talk about these different values, but it's through the lens of like, here's why my friends call me the snack king and what it means to me. That's one identity. Or I could say, I have a few different nicknames, or I have a few different identities, and each one is an important part of who I am. Then each paragraph would be about each of these different identities and the values that it represents. Usually I like to do 1 paragraph per value because it's helpful to organize things. And then the sort of centering, the things connecting everything is like my different identities. There's more there, there's more complexity, but for the sake of time, I want to move on to narrative for just a few minutes. I welcome questions in the chat. Okay. So Jonah's asking, I was late, someone gist me. Jonah, I'm going to gist you. I've never heard that as a verb, but I love it. I'm here for it. We're basically talking about how to brainstorm cool ideas with students. And I just gave some 7 exercises. You can watch the recording. Hope you like it. That's the montage when students aren't writing about challenges. Even if students have faced challenges, I want them to do the montage exercises because I want them to have that 25-minute experience of like coming up with all the cool different sides of themselves and all the cool different like, oh, there's this, there's this, there's this. There's a danger, I think, in starting with an exercise that has students thinking mostly about their challenges. 2 dangers. One is that students who haven't faced challenges are going to kind of feel left out. I know this from years of experience of leading my workshops wrong. I didn't do it for too many years. I did it for about 1.5 years. I was leading here's an exercise, which I'll share in a second, on how to share how to share about challenges you faced. Half the room was sitting there like, oh my gosh, And then I'll say a quarter of them were like, oh, we're talking about challenges. I need to think about my biggest challenge. And like, what about that C I got in biology? And they're feeling left out, or like they're trying to like force some challenge. And I'm just not committed to that. And I feel like it's not very inclusive. So huge recommendation. If there's like one big takeaway that you take from the session, it's like start with montage exercises that get students generating, that feel really inclusive, that effectively almost anyone could do them. Then and only then we shift to narrative, challenges based. And there's a simple exercise. It's in my book. It's on my YouTubes. Smash that like button. No. And it's that feelings and needs exercise. And the feelings and needs exercise is a very simple set of questions that allow students to think about question one: what's a challenge that you faced? And they write down the challenge, and then they're like, what is a challenge? Anything that was difficult for you. Oh, well, could be something big. I give examples. My parents got divorced. I faced bullying growing up. I usually give personal examples. Question two: what were the effects? What were the impacts on your life? And think of it in terms of images, not in terms of feelings. We're going to get to that in a minute, but in terms of images. So what changed? Well, my parents got divorced. My mom moved out. My parents got divorced. The churches that were supporting us financially, a lot of them dropped us. We were a missionary family. And when they heard about it, we got cut off by a lot of churches. What else happened? We didn't have a lot of money, etc. Here are the effects. Question two: effects. Question three: feelings. How did you feel about that? There's a simple exercise or a simple, resource that has a list of feelings, because it's hard to think of all the feelings. So I have them list. What were some of the feelings you felt as a result of this challenge? So I felt stressed, or I felt apprehensive. Why? What did you need? I needed freedom. I needed more certainty. I needed to be seen. Feelings, what were the needs? And then next question: what did you do about it? How did you meet your needs? What actions did you take? Question four: what did you do about it? Sorry. Challenges, effects, feelings, needs, what I did about it, and finally, what I learned. And again, I think 25 minutes is a pretty good time. The YouTube video is 15 minutes because I wanted students to like pause the video. But I feel like 25 minutes is a good amount of time for a student who's really experienced something that they might write about to like do some processing and metabolizing. Because what I'm trying to do is not so much challenges, but like, what were the effects? What did you do about it? What did you learn? And there's a little simple thing in the workbook where if a student goes through that exercise, you can basically scan what they've done. Let me just show you. And you can get a pretty quick sense of like, is this going to be like something that might make for an interesting essay? You can kind of scan what the challenge was, the effects, feelings, needs. And you can also see how much the student has processed around things. Like if there's just challenges and effects and they've left this rest blank, it could mean that they haven't really processed it much. If there's a lot written in all these columns, then it's like, okay, there might be something here. I think it's kind of up to you as a counselor to help them decide, is this a quote unquote essay-worthy challenge? Now, I'm not going to leave you hanging in terms of that sort of stuff. There are some resources in here in terms of how to decide if a challenge is a quote unquote good challenge or not. So some of the questions that students ask are like, should I write about COVID-19? Probably not. There's a COVID-19 section in the additional info. But here are some tips if the student does want to write about it. What if I'm worried it's going to sound like a sob story? Well, usually that's because it's mostly focused on challenges. We need more what you did and what you learned. Any situations where I don't want to write about life struggles? Sure. Maybe it's too difficult or you're still processing it. If so, maybe talk to a counselor, a mentor, a therapist. Should I write about mental health? It's hard. If you're still struggling through the challenges, the reader might, you might not be focused on the skills, qualities, values you're going to bring to a college campus. Could the reader maybe wonder if the student's ready for college? Sometimes that happens. It's also, here's the main reason I think it can be difficult is that it's so common. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is now, but coming out of COVID, like so many students have experienced mental health challenges. And so it's become, and talking to admission officers, they're like, yeah, it's coming up a lot. So I asked students, do you have anything else you could write on? Did you do the montage exercises yet? If not, check them out. Have I truly worked through this? If I were an admission officer reading this essay, would I feel like the students really, are they writing from the scars or the wounds? That's a phrase that Hannah on my team sometimes uses. Wounds, the things I'm still processing. Scars, the things that have had done some healing. And I love this one. Can the mental health challenge be a brief explanation in the additional info section? Simple bullet points. And you can bullet point that based on what I just shared, challenges and effects, feeling, what I did about it and what I learned. You don't necessarily need to put the feelings and the needs in the additional info. Students who feel like they could write an interesting essay based on the challenges, but they don't have the time or energy to process the challenge, great, try montage. Or make it a paragraph or a sentence in a larger montage essay. You can see that I'm kind of trying to get them back to the montage one. If you're still not sure, try the narrative brainstorm and then maybe try montage. Again, how are they different? Narrative is about challenges. Usually they're connected chronologically. A led to B led to C. Montage is more like we're jumping around in space and time. There's a common theme connecting them all. Pausing for questions and just to like take a darn breath. Here, you can totally meet with students in a group or one-on-one. I would recommend, for the sake of efficiency, do large group brainstorming. Or have them join for the workshop, the boot camp, and then work with them one-on-one in speed sessions. Oh, thanks, Barbara. Why do I say ignore the prompts? I find that prompts are not the best way to get my creativity going. Now, I'm prompting the student, so that's not what I mean. I'm talking about the Common App prompts. And here's why I say this. Because imagine if you're, well, let's just say that you're a 42-year-old, that's me, human, and someone asks you something like, you might have a background, identity, interest, or talent that's so meaningful, you feel your application, AKA your sense of self, would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, please share your story. My mind is blown by the possibilities of where that could go. And my brain goes, and I'm just like, oh. So basically anything? So like I tell you anything and it's going to do that? Yeah, essentially. And so for me, and I'm kind of being sarcastic, but I'm also being sincere when I say like, I just find that those haven't been, for students over the years, the best way to get their creativity going, because it's not quite bite-sized enough. Because if I were to sit down with a student and be like, let me read another one. Describe a topic that you find so engaging, you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What that does is that it makes the student sort of commit to one idea. And they're like, well, here's a topic, and they go deep on it. And they could spend 20 minutes doing it, and they might be like, this should be my essay topic. Sometimes that'll work. But I'd rather them brainstorm 20 different things that they know a lot about or love. And then if you're helping them brainstorm ideas, they've got all these different options. Also, I want them to be able to making cross connections and noticing where values are repeating, for example. So I just find that these tend to create more stuff. They're more generative. And colleges don't necessarily care which prompt you chose. Once the student figures out what their story is and what they want to tell about themselves, and they go, is this doing, am I including core values? Is it showing the skills, qualities, and values I want to show to a college campus? Then pick a prompt. Other questions? So don't use the prompt to brainstorm, but still address the prompt. Yes, but if it doesn't address any of the prompts, just pick topic of your choice. What should you avoid when writing a montage essay? I love this question, Valeria. Thank you. So I don't tend to tell students to avoid too many things, but there are some things that I'm like, this is so hard to write. I would say steer clear. So in this part of the tool, which is the uncommon extracurricular activity, first of all, I think it's not a great idea to use an extracurricular activity as a personal statement topic. Why? A lot of schools ask you, tell us about an extracurricular activity, and you can put it in a supplemental essay. A lot of students, probably the bigger reason, have similar activities, and it just takes a lot of time and energy to do well. So what are some common extracurricular activities? These. Students are often like, oh my gosh, can I screenshot this? I'm like, yeah, but you probably, students may not know what these are. And these are some common topics, right? Debate, dance, cross country. We see these all the time. But to answer your question, Valeria, specific topics that I would say probably avoid: the big performance essay, where they're waiting backstage, waiting in the wings to like go on and give the speech or do the dance, or, and they're nervous. But then, hey, guess what? It goes okay. They realize their sense of confidence. The big game essay, we've talked about that one a lot. in past sessions. You know that one. Down by X number of points with Y time remaining on the clock. The sports injury essay, where they break a thing, twist a thing, but surprise, they become the manager and they contribute to the team in this way they didn't expect. Or they find out that they're interested in physics. It's hard to do well. It's been done. It's a path that's commonly tread. The mission trip essay, less common I found after COVID, but I have a feeling it's going to come back now that students can travel again. But it's usually learning leadership or confidence or privilege. So these I find to be very hard to do well. Is it possible to make one of those topics work well? Sure. It's just harder, I think. How do you navigate the space with students who don't think they're writers? You help them generate a ton of awesome content, Kimberly, and then show them practical steps for how this can turn into an essay. Because I think that students don't know until they actually do it. They've never written a college essay before, right? But actually you can equip them with practical tools so that by the end of 25 minutes, you can be like, you got a ton of ideas, and then do a jellyfish with them and be like, you've got an idea right now. So part of it is equipping them with practical techniques and strategies. And I'm not going to say you're not tricking them, but you're sort of guiding them toward writing, even though they don't know that they're writing. Yeah. How can we connect the brainstorm and move forward to a specific prompt? For example, can you show an example of how the snacks led to an actual Common App prompt? I don't have time to do that today, Jenny. That's part 2 is how do you outline it? And we just don't have time today in today's session in 15 minutes to explain, but I will say it's all in the tool. So let me show you the next step here. In outlining and writing, for whatever path a student chooses, so let's say that they choose I love or I know, then essentially, I tell students to write a simple, clear opening, and I walk them through how to do that and give examples. And then I encourage them to bring their 4 to 7 examples. So if it's a snack thing, what are the different snacks that you like? And then, this is the fast version, write a simple ending. It doesn't even have to be a good ending. It just has to be a placeholder, okay? Once they've done that, they've created an outline, I have them write their first draft, essentially. I mean, there are 2 parts to this, actually. The first thing I like to do is to show students cool example essays. So I'm like, hey, here's an example of a student who wrote about animals. And I do a little analysis of those 4 qualities I mentioned? Here they are. And then I give 2 examples, and then I give them the next step. Okay, great. Do the I love, I know exercise. Pick something that might work well as a topic. Try to connect it to at least 5 values in 2 minutes. So that's a jellyfish. Brainstorm some examples, and then connect each example to a different value. That's I said I wasn't going to do it, but that's the 90-second version of how to create an outline. And it's all here for these different types of outlines. There's also a bunch of essay examples. So they can see, okay, here are a bunch of montage and here are a bunch of narrative essay examples. How do you advise students and their parents who insist on a resume essay? I just tell them it's redundant. I'm like, we already know all this stuff about you, right? I usually try and show them great example essays, successful essays. And it would be nigh on impossible to show a great resume example essay because I've never seen one. But what I would say, here's something practical, Jacqueline, is show them a way that a student can weave in activities in a subtle way. So an example of this, for example, is this. Here's one that I think does it in a really subtle way. So this student's talking about food, and he talks about how his grandfather used to be his lesson he taught him is you got to finish your ribs. And this lesson of finishing your ribs has stuck with me. How, pray tell? Whether I'm staying up until 2 in.the morning to figure out the radiance of convergence of a power series, parentheses, I know some math stuff. I think that's math. It sounds like math. Or identifying solutions to countless concerns issued by my school district, cool extracurricular activity that you can find more about in my activities list. I strive to finish my ribs. So the simple thing that the student is doing is they've got a common theme of food, which is the overarching connective element. And then they're focusing on a particular value. The value is finishing what you start, being determined, gritty. And then you've got some cool examples of how you're doing that. The reason a resume essay feels like a resume essay is that it's focused on the activities themselves. And I'm less interested in the activities themselves because I already know about those. I'm more interested in the so what. Susan Tree said this to me yesterday. She's like, that's the what. We need the so what. Susan Tree. So you can tell them that, Jacqueline. Like, great, we've got the what already. So what? And a thing that I'm interested in doing is finding structures that allow them to do lots of different little so whats and essentially connect the so whats into a common theme. Tips on these essay styles could apply to the UC personal insight questions. Merge, I've got a whole separate thing on that won't be happening today, but guess what? It's in CEG Live. I've got a whole, let me show you real quick. Sorry, because I'm just really excited to show it to you. And I think a lot of people don't know that this exists. So you know how I had this like choose your own adventure tool that's like for personal statements? Turns out the personal insight questions need a whole separate tool. And this is going to be overwhelming to some of you, but I have a whole separate tool for personal insight questions that, yes, students get access to with CEG Live. And did I mention that it's free to them? And then it's pay what you can for counselors. So this is how to structure any personal insight question, whether it's leadership, creative, and it takes a similar format where I like show them a successful leadership prompt. I basically walk through what do I love about it, and then how do you outline it and then write it for yourself. And there's a similar thing. There's like a workbook. Students create their activities list, and then by the end of it, they revise it and they up-level it, and it's all magic. And everybody writes perfect PIQs. I'm kidding. But it gets them to that first draft, hopefully, and it answers a bunch of their questions. Do you ever find students are intimidated by example essays? Yes, Sally. Sometimes they are. And there's like that initial hit of like, oh, I have to do this. So here's what I'd say. It's important to contextualize them and to say, look, I'm showing these to you, and just like trigger warning, you might be intimidated by these and you might feel like you're not good enough or you can't do this. And what I want to say to you is like, first of all, many of the students who wrote the essays that I'm going to show to you felt the same way. Okay. The other thing I want to say to you is like, these are some of the best essays I've ever read. Like in the top 0.5%. This is not, what I'm going to show you does not represent most college essays. But the reason I'm going to show you this college essay as opposed to another one is like, I think there's some really cool stuff that we can learn from it, and then proceed to show them the really cool things that they can learn from it. Because that's what, back to whose was this? Kimberly was asking, how do we make sure that students don't feel overwhelmed if they're not good writers? Is give them practical things that they can learn from it and then go do in their own writing. I'll sometimes say to students, here's a lesson that we can steal from this essay. And I'm careful to say, I don't mean that you should steal this essay, like, what's the word? Plagiarize it. I was going to say patronize it. Don't patronize the essay. Don't plagiarize the essay. I want you to learn from what are the techniques the student's using. Like, look at this cool way that this student segued from this value of finishing his ribs and talked about other ways that he applies this value in his life. Like, how could you do that? And then that turns into like a practical thing that they can actually think about and then go do. So yes, but having said all that, Sally, still students will be intimidated, but when you start to break down what they can actually do with it, a lot of times they'll push past that and they'll be like, okay, cool, this starts to feel doable. And it ends up being worth it. Like, they sort of, so if I had to go, is it worth it? Absolutely. Even though they're sometimes nervous at the start. For the sake of time today, we don't have time to really get into the example essays. I'm looking through the bullet points of what I said I was going to do on this session. Here's a good tool to figure out, and in terms of like helping them pick a topic. Okay, check this out. When it comes to helping students pick a topic, here's like a framework that you can use. So when it's a montage essay, I find that montage essays tend to stand out more when the topic is uncommon and elastic. By elastic, I mean stretchy enough to talk about lots of different sides of you. So for me, a topic like snacks is probably going to be elastic for me because I can connect it to a bunch of different things, and it's going to be slightly more uncommon. Whereas for me, a topic like basketball is going to be pretty common. It's going to actually be somewhat elastic for me. So it would probably be like here for me, like basketball is here because it's common, but it's elastic. I can connect it to lots of different things. Food is a common topic, but you can connect it to a lot of different things. Something that would be like common and not elastic for me would be like the violin. I say that because I don't play the violin. Like that's a common topic and I can't connect it to a lot of things personally. So that would be down here. So when you're, and I think this is what we're doing when we're trying to help a student assess, is this a good topic or not? You can offer them this framework. Is it common? Not common. Is it elastic? Not elastic. And it's on a spectrum. I'm not saying that students shouldn't write about common topics. I'm just saying that I think if it's uncommon, it's going to be easier to stand out with that topic. A danger in doing this is that students are like, oh, I can't, I can only think of common topics. And you say, it's okay. Like, let's start there. Brainstorm some, do some jellyfishes. And in fact, in those jellyfishes, see if you can come up with some uncommon values. That's a way to stand out. For the narrative path, I would offer a different framework for how to decide on a topic. For this, I would say the essay topics that I find that stand out more, that are in the challenges realm, they are often dealing with difficult challenges and have wow insights. Whereas essays that are a little bit more blendy-inny have meh challenges and insights are meh, you know, like I got a bad grade but I learned that I should study better. And it's like, okay, you know, whereas students who are dealing with those, what I would call loosely compelling challenges. Now, I don't think students need to, this is the danger here, is that students get into a vulnerability Olympics. And they're like, well, here's a really hard challenge, blah. And it's like, whew, okay. And you can ask some of those feelings and needs exercise questions. But I don't want students to feel like they have to write about the most difficult challenge. And again, that's why I keep coming back. And in fact, spend most of my time with students talking about, you know, how do we generate uncommon topics and make them more elastic? And the answer is like, spend more time on the values exercise, making connections, I think. 2 ways. I think I did most of the bullet points, y'all. If I didn't, or if there's something that you want to talk about, thanks, I'm getting like applause. If there's like let's do, you know, you remember Magic 8 Ball, where it's like, you know, you shake up the thing and it gives you an answer. Let's treat Q&A as Magic 8 Ball. So like, are there personal questions that you have that you really want the answer to? Like, should you say yes to the dress or whatever? But like, are there specific questions that you'd like, you know, me to get into? I would totally do that. In case folks came in late, and because I'm really excited to like hang out with you more, let me just bear with me, and this will also give folks a chance to do questions. I would love it if some of y'all, actually, let's do a quick poll if we can. I'm curious to know how many folks are signed up for CEG Live. Jasmine, if we have that poll ready, could we throw it up? Not like vomit it, but like, let me just show you the landing page real quick. And here it is. I just want to name that I feel self-conscious doing this because it feels like I'm promoting a thing. And that just is yucky for me generally. That's why I want to I'm going to like skip to the end and be like, by the way, it is definitely pay what you can. And you can definitely choose $0 for this. This is not in terms of like goals for Ethan in life. This is not, Ethan, this is a big moneymaker. This is about impact and about reaching more students. That's why we put this program together. 25% of you are signed up. No, but I plan to, and then no and not sure what it is. Well, for you folks who aren't sure what it is, and in case you weren't here at the start, it's basically a series of summer and early fall workshops on the personal statement, on the application and supplemental essays, and on, somebody mentioned it, the UC personal insight questions. And there are all these dates. And essentially it's like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday situation. Students come in, you basically, you know, make sure they get signed up. They come in, you don't have to worry about it. They come and hang out with me for a week. And then at the end, they've got some first drafts that they then share with you. What else? Is there anything else on this that I want to show you? They're like the dates. Day 1 is brainstorming. Day 2 is outlining and writing. Day 3 is revising and up-leveling. Again, they're not going to be like totally perfect polished essays, but they will have started. This is my attempt to clone myself, by the way, because I can't come and hang out with you individually. Yeah, anyway, you get the idea. That's it. And I hope that some of y'all will take advantage of it. And that tool that I mentioned, that I showed you, that's the main curriculum. That's what you get access to. And the cool thing about that is that when students have questions and they're like, Miss, I'm trying to figure out such and such thing, you can be like, did you go to the FAQ on the tool, on the College Essay Guys tool? And let me show you what that is. So when it comes to this, students are going to be asking you all kinds of things. Like, for example, they're going to be asking you, you know, how do I, let me see what are the questions. Oh, what if my challenges aren't very compelling? There's an answer for that. There's a little section on it. How do I come up with a better beginning for my montage? Like, how do I come up with a cool opening? Here's 7 ideas for starting the montage. Here's the whole table of contents. They're going to be asking you things like, how do I end? There's a thing on that. One of the biggest ones I get is, how do I make my essay more insightful? If it's a montage essay, or if it's a narrative essay, it's like that's what I learned. Like, these are the insights that I developed. But sometimes what I learned is going to be, the insights are going to be connected to a montage essay. And there's like a whole bunch of ideas for how to add insight to a personal statement. This is, I think, one of the biggest things in the middle area, where the students, like, they've got a cool idea, they've got the outline, but it's not very insightful. So this is a bunch of practical things on that. So I give an example and show them how to do it. All right, pitch officially over. What else? Let's do questions. I'm gonna go over a little bit because I'm feeling like it and I'm having a good time. I'm feeling self-conscious that I'm drinking out of a single-use plastic bottle. I just wanted to name that. So it's mostly for students, but counselors and parents can sign up too. Yeah, no, parents can't. Well, if you're a parent that's interested in this, I've got a whole separate, like, month-long thing during the summer. I would say do that instead. This is for schools, really, and organizations. Like, that's the primary focus and audience here. Do students have access to the tool throughout the applications process? Yes, that's the whole thing. I'm not like being like, okay, you got 7 more days of this thing. No, I'm like, in October, when you're like, how do I come up with an opening? They can just go here. Can you share the CEG Live link? Absolutely. Absolument. That's the second time I've spoken bad French on this call. Okay, yeah, here's the link. There we go. Jasmine beat me. Not beat me. You can see my brain works in double most of the time. How do you address kids who are trying to write essays for schools that might not suit them? Depends. Some questions to ask. I mean, look, if there's a student, okay, let me slow down because this is kind of a, here are times when I'm okay with it, Barbara. If there's a student who's writing an essay for Penn or Cornell, let's say, and it's a YS essay, and they're like really working hard to write that YS essay, I might let them go because I know that they're writing a YS essay for another school and they're going to be able to reuse some of that content. So I'm actually a fan of like using what we'll call like wildcard schools as rocket fuel to power the writing of the future essays. Does that make sense? So it's like, I'm not going to be like, sometimes I'll be like, look, you've got Stanford, Cornell, Harvard, Yale on your list, and University of Redlands, and it's like, there's just like, and it's like, you've got 8 reach schools and like 1 maybe school. So I just want to make sure that you're balancing these things out, because these schools have, less than a 7% acceptance rate. And I want to make sure you've got some more. So that sometimes opens up a conversation about having a balanced list. But usually what I'll have them do is this essay tracker thing that I walk them through on CEG Live and be like, how could you reuse these essays? Because I'm more okay with it if the essays are reusable. Or if they're writing an essay for USC, I'm talking loud. If they're writing an essay for USC and the question is like, what's something else you'd like us to know about you? Maybe the student doesn't necessarily have a chance at USC, or it's going to be very low likelihood, but they can use that essay for, the UCs, for example, or something like that. So I'm looking for like doubling and tripling opportunities. Have I sent out the spreadsheet for students to sign up? So once you sign up, you'll get that information. And if you haven't gotten it, you can email us. Just respond to any of the CEG Live emails and be like, hey, where's the spreadsheet? And you'll get that. But it might be in if you signed up, you might already have it. Oh, wait, sorry. Let me actually read Jasmine's response. So sorry, it will be coming out very soon. Got it. Can individual students sign up, or do they need a counselor to sign up? They need a counselor to sign them up. So what I tell students, if you're a parent watching this, like, go tell your counselor about this. For individual students, I would say sign up for the summer courses, which are a month long. And the difference is like the CEG Live is all of it in 1 week. The summer courses are like over the course of a whole month. They're also pay what you can, and students can like sometimes get a little bit more done. What else? Curious. I shall take a sip from my single-use plastic bottle. I love when someone joins this late in the session. Someone's joining right now. Welcome. And that's the secret to good essay writing. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I didn't say anything, person who just came in. Can CEG Live be done async? Totally. Yes, they can watch recordings. What are my common challenges with students? They are varied, and they probably are your challenges, Holly. So my common challenges include students being overly attached to a topic that I think is like maybe not their most elastic topic. So for example, a student might come in and they might be like, I really want to write about my Gold Award or my Boy Scouts trip, and I'm like, tell me more. Because I try to be like, yes, and at the start, tell me more. And I'll be like, what are the values that it connects to? And they'll be like, oh, this. I'm like, cool. Then let's pause on that one for now. I want to show you some other brainstorming exercises. And let's see what that generates. And if we come back and we're like, this is the best, most elastic topic for you that's going to show your skills, qualities, values, and interests, great. But there might be some cool stuff. Are you down to like spend 25 minutes doing this? And usually they're like, yeah, cool. And I'm tricking them into coming up with other topics, because I find the best way to get them unhooked from a common topic is the same way that when you see someone in a bad relationship, like, what's the best way to help your friend get out of a bad relationship? Introduce them to someone new, right? Or just get them to see that like there are all these other fish in the sea, because usually when we're in it, and this is all that I can like see and know. So once they sort of start to see, okay, well, Boy Scouts is one thing, but like, oh, cool, there's this like thing you have here, that's another possibility. And you've got all these cool different identities. And then I can go and say something like, I feel like there's so much to you and it's just not necessarily coming through in the Boy Scouts essay. Or I'll be like, you know what? I think you should write a Boy Scouts essay for UC personal insight question number 7, because it's community service focused. So let's use that, but let's use it for this. Let's, stay open to other topics. They're going to be more open to the other topics if you've helped them brainstorm other ideas. Other common things. It's usually not a shortage of ideas, to be honest, because we go through all of these brainstorming exercises. So students are like, cool, got a lot. What's next? Sometimes in the past, they've had trouble getting started. Like, where do I start? And the connective tissue there is jellyfish. That's an original sentence. The connective tissue for there is a jellyfish. Jennifer and Beth and Judith, who I can see on my screen. That's an original sentence. So like the way to get them from I have no idea to like how to start to like, okay, here's how I could start, I think is the jellyfish, and starting to see how they can connect to different values and different stories. You mentioned students sometimes resist the brainstorming. I don't think they resist the my experience is that students don't resist all brainstorming. My experience is sometimes with specific exercises. So they might be like, I can't think of any essence objects. And I'm like, great, let's do one of these others. Or they might be like, I don't know what my identities are. And then I'm like, ooh, you're going to love this process. No, they might be like, there are specific ones that don't work for certain students, but that's why we have variety. Working with twins who seem to have the same experiences, I like that. I don't mind that question. I think giving them these variety of exercises is going to generate a variety of topics. And I'll say, I just think it's going to give them more options. How long do students have access to the recordings? Till the end of college? No, till, I think it's like for a year or something. What about an initial stab at an essay that comes back so poor it needs to be trashed and the process started over? Well, if they've got a bunch of ideas, that should be easier, right? Because it's like, cool, we tried the Boy Scouts essay, or we tried the snacks essay. It didn't work. What are some other possibilities? So inside the tool, I know I keep referring back to it, but it's like, it's where it's my brain externalized. I want students to come up with 2 or 3 ideas so that when that first idea doesn't work, then they can have another one that they can jump to. Yeah. All right. One more question and then we'll call it. I'm going to just let it be whatever comes through next. Is there a different link to the summer month-long session or course? There is, Emily, and that was the last question, and we're going to throw it in, and we'll follow up with it via email too. So thanks for being here. I heart you all. If you're going to be at the Super ACAC session in Spokane, I will see you there. We're doing a couple sessions, one for the pre-con, and then there's like a big one. So I hope to see some of you and share, I don't know, waves or hugs. We're there, right? We can do that again. So thanks, y'all. See you soon.